Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Look at all these people.
It's wonderful. All righty. I think, is everybody in? We see a couple of people connecting still, so.
Good morning.
Morning.
How's everyone doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm okay.
I love when we see people we haven't seen in a while. All right, so Keo is, we're recording, so we're ready to get started. So my name is Leona Domchak, and I am a parent consultant with CPAC. I want to thank you guys for all being with us this morning, and that we have special guests today. I do want to give a shout out to one of my coworkers who's watching Facebook Live for us. We were able to get on today, and so Kiyomari, she might want to introduce herself, but she's a little secret that you all see over there. I want to welcome our special guests from the Down Syndrome Association. And Shannon, how about if I start with you to introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Shanon McCormick. I am the Executive Director of the Down Syndrome Association of Connecticut. We are a statewide organization, and we support families who live with Down syndrome. We have a few other families who have other diagnoses that kind of cross over into the characteristics of Down syndrome. So we're not exclusively about Down syndrome, but primarily that's the community that we are. We provide services statewide, and those services include, well, so there are two things that are most difficult, I think, in addressing a disability, and that's getting accurate information and finding emotional support. And so we make connections. We connect people to accurate information, to medical support, therapeutic information. If we don't know the answer, we can usually help you find someone who does. And then emotional support. We're a tight community. We help each other, and it's always good to have someone to talk with who understands what you're dealing with, the kind of situation you are in. So that's what we do.
So thank you so much for being here and letting us borrow Melissa, which I'll let her introduce herself. But Melissa is the literacy director with the Down Syndrome Association and provides wonderful literacy supports to families as well. And she's going to talk about that with us today. But go ahead, Melissa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa. I work with the Literacy and Education Center underneath the umbrella of the Down Syndrome Association. I've been teaching for about 2 years now, providing direct reading instruction within phonics and comprehension. And as many of you might know, reading and literacy stems into multiple subject areas such as social studies and science. So I do dip into that as well. And I'm here to share with you today what I've been doing with distance learning and how to help facilitate in that process of teaching literacy and ensuring that your child's making progress during this time.
All right. So we want this to be very open and conversational because we understand that everybody's has different questions, different needs, especially right now. And so although we have prepared, Melissa has prepared to talk about specific things, she's more than happy to take questions along the way and hopefully provide you all with the information that you're looking for. So Melissa, let's start with, we were talking about the other day when we were preparing, like what should families expect from distance learning for accommodations and modifications? Do you want to share your screen?
Oh yeah, let me go through that. Yeah,
Right.
so we're gonna go through like a discussion, or do you want me to go right into sharing?
Well, we'll start with if anybody has any big questions. Are they interested? If they want to ask, we can go ahead and do that. But we'll start with the presentation, and we'll see if anybody has questions along the way.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to dive into literacy and what that means for distance learning. And as I said before, literacy stems into multiple subject areas. It isn't just language arts. You find it in social studies, you find it in science, and you even find it in math. So it's an important skill that stems across a wide array of subject areas in your child's education. So just some outcomes. You're going to understand the difference between an accommodation and modification. We're also going to help you kind of understand how to support your child's growth in literacy through distant learning. And we're also going to provide you with resources for literacy development. I'm going to share 2 resources today, but we are going to send everyone who participated today a pamphlet with our PDF document with all of the attached links. The majority of them are free to use and were provided by our research and training coordinator, Kathleen Whitbread. All right, so Leona, would you like to discuss kind of the difference between accommodations and modifications?
So accommodations, we see them, you see them on your IEP, and a lot of times we get questions about what the difference is. So the thing to remember is accommodations are changes made to instructions such as materials, content enhancements, and tasks that change how a student learns. So it could be like a larger font, it could be if you're colorblind, you might change the settings on everything to a grayscale. Modifications are changes made to the content, which would affect what the student learns, such as modifying assessments and homework. So sometimes we can make modifications, say, to a math program where they're being exposed to grade level curriculum, but perhaps modifying it to their level. So maybe by simplifying the numbers, less problems and stuff on a page would be an accommodation, right? Because that would be more visual spatial. So they're interchangeable a lot of times. But the biggest thing to know is the accommodations is just changing how they learn. They're learning the exact same information at the exact same time. It's just how, and modifications are modifying the curriculum.
Thank you, Leona. All right, so I'm going to kind of dive into a couple of examples on how I've been helping families. So I provide literacy and tutoring services under the Literacy and Education Center, as well as I provide parent consultation. So I have parents send me work that's being sent from their school district right now, and I'm helping them modify and adapt it to their child's present levels. There we go. So strategies for success. So I'm going to go into visual supports, which is a great accommodation that you could utilize, as well as a different format for assessment, which is a great modification that you could utilize. So we're going to dive deep into that right now. So just one example for the visual supports, and I'm going to apply both of these modifications and accommodations into this example. So I had a 7th grade student who is reading on a end of the year first, beginning of the year 2nd grade reading level. That was assigned a science assignment in the area of the skeletal system, and where they received a Google Doc of the article related to the skeletal system, and different terminology was introduced. And this is what the actual page looked like. I just kind of screenshotted it and then applied it to our PowerPoint slide. So it had an introduction, it had the components of the skeletal system. It was like about 2 or 3 pages on a Google Docs. Looking at that, it was clearly directed towards somebody who had a 7th grade reading level, as well as I am aware of the strengths and weaknesses of this child, or strengths and learning challenges, I should say, where they the visual piece of this article was overwhelmed with a lot of words. And this is something where if this child were to see this page right away, they would immediately feel discouraged. So I immediately had to go in and change the visual supports. And if it's already on a Google Doc, you could easily just start copying and pasting it right onto a Google slide. So that's kind of what I did. So I took all that information, and this is just a second page, or I'll go into that after. And I just started to break it up and just really brought in like the main components of that article that was sent on that Google Docs. And I used visual supports as well. So I broke it apart, copied and pasted it, as well as provided those visual supports on individual Google Doc or Google Slides. I always get confused with the Microsoft PowerPoint and then Google Slides. So please be wary of that when I'm talking about it. I'm just primarily talking about our Google Drive and the options that we have, such as Google Docs and Google Slides. So I took that article and then I reduced it. I provided visuals. And then I looked at the actual assignment itself. And this was part of the assignment. So again, I just screenshotted it and just put it up on this PowerPoint slide that we have now. And the child was asked to answer the following using complete sentences. So she wanted to have a definition of each vocabulary word that was present in the article itself. And my student is still working on generating complete sentences. And I also realized that my student has difficulties with extracting information from a text and putting it into her own words. So what I did is change the different formats. So I had two ways of doing that. One, I used the one of the vocabulary words, and I just used a yes or no response to see if she understood the definitions, as well as I provided fill in the blanks for a very particular vocabulary word. And
so
then
Melissa, I'm going to ask one question right here because it came up on the screen, and as you're talking about how the modifying the work and everything is, we got a question that says, how can a family navigate the district inequities to get their students what they need? And so that's a really powerful question right now with everything that's going on. And a lot of what Melissa is providing today is some information about ways that work can be modified so that they can access the work. And in one of our other series last week, we talked about documentation. And I think when there's inequities going on and you're starting to see them more and more at home, because it's, I guess, Wanda, specifically, what is the inequity? Could you answer? Is it access? Is it just not, yeah, like what is the?
Well, in the Bridgeport district, because, hi everyone, just to introduce myself, I'm Wanda Simmons. I'm the Greater Bridgeport NAACP Education Chair. So I deal with a lot of families, and I have, thank you. I have come in contact with families that don't even have the technology that they need to even be connected with the distance learning for their children. You know, I had 3 families that had nonverbal students. You know, even though they were given a packet, some of them didn't even hear from their team since they've been out of school. You know, so what I had to do was, you know, advocate for the families to just get like a Chromebook or a laptop. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's what I'm dealing with in Bridgeport. I also wanted to.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh yeah. I also the reason why I hooked up again with CPAC is because I remember when my child was going through the education system, and CPAC was a great resource for me, and taught me how to really advocate for my child and to get the things that she needed. So that's the reason why I really tapped into CPAC, just from past experience. So what I'm liking to do is to again link up with CPAC and do like maybe a round table. I had a round table.
So, I'm sorry. So my kids didn't show up to their one-on-one. The phone's ringing. I apologize. So what I'm going to do is allow Melissa to keep going with the literacy, but I'm going to encourage you to reach out to us. We can talk about it, but we also have calls on a regular basis, which I'll talk about at the end of it. And I think we can answer that question at that time.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment about it as well, just understanding that there are a lot of limitations to technology and its availability, but there are definitely still low tech options to accommodate, I always say adapt, accommodate and modify the packets that are being sent home. For instance, if you have a child, when you look at their present levels of academic performance, or not their present levels, their accommodations and modifications page, and it says that they need visual supports, or they are somewhere along the lines of needing to change the format of instruction, a low-tech option is to simply just cut out lines of articles that the child's supposed to read and giving it to them one at a time, rather than overwhelming them with the entire article or passage. Just in relation to this. So say if that article, this one right here, was sent home not on a Google Drive or on a Google Doc, but just sent home as a hard copy in a packet, and you're like, well, I don't know what to do with this. This is at a 7th grade level and it's full of words and my kid gets overwhelmed. Cutting it out is a great low tech way to do that, and giving the child one at a time, as well as, changing the format of what the responses are. This is something that could be done on paper and pencil, or you could create kind of like fill in the blank responses for that, or yes and no responses for that part. Does that make sense? Does that help you at all in relation to literacy?
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna go into one more thing unless we have any other questions. Does anyone?
No, keep going.
Awesome. So we're gonna just share with you 2 different resources that I find very handy for people that have access to the internet and and a printer, so you could print out these activities. Or I think some of them could actually be available just online to use. So we're going to go into Florida Center for Reading and Research. And ready to read. So what I love about this site is you could find student-centered activities, and they're leveled by grade level. So you could look at K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. So I'm just going to dive into K1 right now. And it breaks down literacy skills, which is really great. So you have your phonological awareness component, which is a key foundational skill for learning how to read. It works with the manipulation of sound versus actually applying it to the letter. So I'm just gonna click on one, so sentence segmentation. And what's great about it is it comes with the objective, so what you would like your child to do, as well as the materials that you may need and how to go about the activity. And it's very kid-friendly. Everything is just compiled right into a PDF, which is awesome. So you could just easily print it out. And it does that for pretty much grade levels K through 6, and then it breaks down each literacy skill. So if you're not working on phonological awareness, you could go into phonics, fluency, and vocabulary, and even comprehension, which is really awesome. Another great resource, this really works with our younger population, but again, you could see if this could be applied to an older population as well. There's these skill building activities on Get Ready to Read. And there's a set of activity cards that you could just click the link to. And you can either print the activity cards or you can just look at it if you don't have a printer. And there's 18 pages worth of literacy-based activities that you could bridge into your everyday. So if you're a parent that is having a hard time finding structured time for educational activities, these activities are something that you could embed in your day and have fun with, and doesn't really seem as though it's this like structured educational time. It's more of like play-based learning infused with literacy skills, which is really great. Does anyone else have any questions?
So, Melissa, I just want to well, thank you for, and remind everybody that these were only 2 resources that she had for our 20 minutes today, but we will be sending on Connecticut Parent Advocacy Resource page, it will be added. It's a one-page resource, as well as, I believe we'll try to get it up on the Down Syndrome Association webpage as well, for access to literacy skills. And these resources are good for any, bless you, good for any children with literacy concerns. So it doesn't have to necessarily have a Down syndrome profile. I think that's where it's really important. My son has dyslexia, and I know Melissa, as we go through these things all the time, they definitely apply in our house. So I want to thank you for taking the time. I don't see any questions for today, but I hope if anybody has any, they reach out to us so that we can answer them for you. Keo has put in the chat for everyone. Feel free to call us at CPAC, and our phone number and email is listed there for you. Melissa has put up her email and phone number if anyone is interested in reaching out directly to her. Mm-hmm. And as we kind of close up, Shannon, thank you so much, and Melissa, both of you. But I also wanted to share, I don't know if you wanted to share, Melissa, sometimes as we go through this, we've talked about documentation at CPAC already, but one of the things that we wanted to talk about or kind of remind everybody is, as you see different things going on at home, or you see your children learning differently, to go ahead and document it, because it will, I apologize, it can use that information with the districts later. So like Wanda, with your question, you know, the inequities are different right now for everybody, but as parents are starting to see, sometimes you see what your children can do. And I know that I heard a wonderful story where a child signed into their Google Classroom and were able to perform the task and actually do very well on an assessment, but they've never been in the Google Classroom prior to distance learning. So I think if we can support our families, our children, through using some of these different resources and techniques, our children are adapting well, and I think we're all getting into the swing of it now, and they're going to be really successful with our supports. Does anybody have any last minute questions? I see just, will we have any sessions geared toward kids with ED and A? We might, it depends on exactly what you're looking for. That was a question from Jeff. We're definitely looking to add to our calls different suggestions. So if you're looking for something specifically, let me know. Like I said, even though Melissa is with the Down Syndrome Association, her strategies today apply for anybody with literacy concerns.
Yes,
and be very helpful.
Going off of that, when it comes to, you know, it's not just populated for children with Down syndrome. Anyone who has a phonological based challenge and or a working memory challenge is, this relates to any of those children who have those kinds of challenges when it comes to literacy.
Yeah, no, those were very helpful. I was just wondering too, because how to navigate more or less implementing some behavior plans at home, which is something that um, it's tough to navigate when you're on one side of the computer and your students on the other. I also work with a lot of preschool, highly impacted kids, nonverbal. I mean, sitting for 10 seconds is a challenge, and trying to provide one-to-one instruction via like a Google Hangout is very challenging. So just kind of wondering if there'd be any sessions like that with some tips or tricks for those types
So
of
I want Melissa to come back. I think she did a great job, and I actually we do have a BCBA who has attended, and I believe we're going to ask to come back. So it's something that we can put on there. But I think that Melissa, next time you come back, perhaps what we can look at is some of your strategies, because you're facing some of those concerns as well right now with the distant learning and how to engage them from that standpoint. So, I mean, if you want to share real quick a couple of your things, but I definitely think that's something that we could do.
All right, so I just got really excited and I would love to come back. And just so you're aware, I teach people ranging from age 6 to 22. So I have a wide range of people that I teach, and I'm going to show you I'm going to stop my share just because I have to go into a file, and then once I get to do you mind, do I have time to go into
We're over a little bit, so if anybody wants to sign out, they can, but I'll give you like 4 more minutes. How's that?
Okay, 4 more minutes. I just get excited. I'm like, oh, resources and things that I've done. Let me share with you. All right. Drive. So I'm going to show you a lesson plan format of for a child who is 7, turning 7 right now. And this is a student I have had difficulties keeping in the classroom with, and I am now able to sustain focus with this child for more than, for about 20 minutes straight due to some of the activities that I've been doing. So let me just dive right in. Give me 1 minute. I'm terrible at multitasking.
I just want to say to those who have put suggestions out there, we thank you so much. I'm definitely writing them down, and we're looking for things that we want to bring to you, things that would interest you. So thank you so much for sharing. And I will tell you, as Melissa's doing that, because we're overtime, is that this Thursday at 10, if you wanted to join us, we have the Connecticut Secondary Transition Youth Advisory Board to talk about learning from home and ways to support positive mental health and help keeping busy during this time at home. So we hope you can join us for that as well. And for those that are Spanish speaking, Keo, what do you call it? Is it a support group? Is it every day in Spanish from 1 to, is it 12 to 1 or 1 to 2?
It's a weekly parent support call in Spanish from 1 to 2. And then on Wednesdays, we have a learning series at 4 o'clock.
And also just want to give a thank you, Keo. And they do a wonderful job. She makes me want to learn Spanish just so I can attend. But they're always so happy. So I also want to give, to remind anybody with younger children, birth to 5, that we have our Families Connections page, which is a great support area for a family with younger children. And there's special webinars for them as well. And one of them is challenging behaviors coming up next Monday. So.
All right. So quick share an exemplar lesson. So one thing I do and I make sure of is once I set a structure for my student, I keep that structure. So they know exactly what to expect every time I go into the classroom. They know what activities to work on. And if I introduce anything new, it is slowly integrated, because the second you get anxiety or anxiousness with your student, they're going to shut down. So one quick thing I do is I don't share and show you people. I present information. So I check in with them. I ask them how they're feeling, something fun they did that week. I share with them some things I've been doing, cuddling with dogs, It's snowing. I'm in Vermont right now. It's so sad. I took a picture of my classroom, so it makes them feel familiar. Like, oh, okay, so it kind of just zooms them in. Like, oh, I know my expectations. This is what I have to do. I go over materials that they might need, classroom rules. My kiddo works for chocolate covered raisins. I wish I could work for chocolate covered raisins. I had to pick a hairstyle for me today to feel as if they have some control over the lesson too, which is pretty silly. I provide a visual schedule. I use first and then language, and go through my typical lesson with them. And then I also...
Listen, you gotta take a shower. You have not taken a shower like in 2 days. Sorry.
It's amazing. That just shows the reality of
Real life. This is real life.
I love it.
Awesome.
So does that help you at all with kind of like how to work through a lesson and how to help motivate kids?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing some similar things like that for some of my higher functioning students. And I'm actually presenting as a like Google slide for one-to-one like discrete trial. Like I have like their programming turn as slides, and we just kind of work through it that way with the parent on the other end, helping facilitate and prompt if necessary, or corral or do whatever they need to do at that time. So it's been going, but yeah, no, that's very helpful.
Well, I do think, and I wrote it down because I think that's a great discussion. If we can get some professionals together, you might be able to share some information. So again, I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. There's just a couple of things. Laura asked how we can invite others to the meetings. It is on our CPAC webpage, and actually, like the link you used today is the link for every Tuesday and Thursday at 10. Maria, yes, in Spanish. Maria is our most faithful follower, and she does just as well in English too, and I say that every time I see her. Thank you, Brooke, for sharing the Spanish the Spanish sessions out there. It's Keo and Adrienne, they do such a wonderful job, and Maria's always there, and I think it's a wonderful group. And so I just want to thank everybody for attending today and giving information, and such great information for future sessions. So I hope that I see you, everybody back. And Jeff, I'm really liking the idea of maybe hosting a session for teachers out there, so that we can share some of this information. So thank you so much to everybody. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We are open.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Say bye.
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 Hi.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, guys. Bye, ladies. Thank you, Keo.